I'd like to thank you for joining us today. My name is Heike Johns, Learning and Development Coordinator for the Division of Developmental Disabilities. I will be your host for today's webinar. Housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone muted upon entry. To back up, we suggest that you mute your line. If you have questions regarding today's content, we ask that you put those questions in the Q&A box. Questions will be answered as time allows. However, please know that even whether your question is answered or not, we will compile those into an FAQ document, and that FAQ document will be sent out along with a recording of today's webinar and the presentation. If you're having difficulty, something with sound or anything like that comes up, if you would put those type of questions in the chat box, I will address those to the best of my ability. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Turner with Mo Housing Corporation for today's webinar regarding Technology First.
Heike, we are here today to talk about the Missouri Division of Developmental Disabilities Technology First Initiative. Turner and I work for Missouri Inclusive Housing Development Corporation. We're a small nonprofit agency working with Division of Developmental Disabilities to promote the Technology First Initiative being rolled out in the month of February. And as part of that, we are providing training on assistive technology and have developed success stories, videos, and other materials to spread information about the use of assistive technology to improve the quality of life for individuals who receive DD services. So in today's webinar, we'll be looking at what we mean by Technology First, how technology can benefit individuals with disabilities, and how we can implement these services through our waivers. We'll be hearing from two individuals who will tell us through the use of video how they use assistive technology, how it benefits them. So by Technology First. Techniques that the use of assistive technology will be considered first when we're looking at ways to provide a needed support to someone before we consider providing or adding direct staff. So you'll be hearing a lot more about Technology First, not only in Missouri, but Technology First is really a national movement that's gaining a lot of momentum. And this momentum is due to the many benefits they'll experience when they use assistive technology. And over the past year, my coworkers and I have had the pleasure of visiting with people in different parts of the state who use assistive technology in their daily lives. And these are some of the things that they've told us about the benefits of using technology. Overwhelmingly, people tell us that their quality of life is better, that they're more independent, they feel safe, and that it provides them with privacy and dignity. And that technology can also provide tools that increase health and safety for individuals. For example, it can be used to track whether someone has taken their medications, their sleep patterns are, activity level in the home, and occurrence of different health events. And from those options of tracking individuals' health can be used to pick on trends that might indicate that the person has a health issue going on. For example, someone who usually sleeps well at night is now getting up maybe 4 or 5 times during the night. And so when you see that data, you can start asking questions and trying to figure out why that is. Is the person not sleeping? Are they using the bathroom more frequently? And this is all kinds of data that can be tracked and used to help improve health outcomes for people. Also, care staffing shortage in Missouri, as do a lot of other states. Assistive technology can help us more effectively utilize our available staff. And it's often a less expensive option to providing direct support staff. So talking about when we talk about assistive technology. Now, this is that's in state statute, but basically assistive technology refers to a device or piece of equipment that allows a person to be more independent. It can include assessments to help a person identify the best device for them, and then it also includes training in using assistive technology. And these are specific kinds of assistive technology available in our waivers, and they include emergency response systems. These you often see advertised. They're pretty common in the general public. Some kind of a system allows a person to maybe push a button and get help from someone who's at a call center. It can include medication reminder systems, and most of these systems have some kind of dispensing feature. Well, they will actually dispense medication to an individual when it's time for them to take their medicine. It can include the remote support systems that might include sensors, videos, web cameras, or other technology that particularly help an individual communicate with a remote staff. And other technology that protects the health and safety of an individual. And I mentioned it also includes assessments to determine which device would work best for a person. And then since it's really no good to have a device and not know how to use it, it also includes training in the use of assistive technology. I mentioned assessments, and you're probably wondering, well, are assessments required for requesting assistive technology? And there you see some devices that are more medical in nature that are going to require assessment by a licensed OT or PT, but again, that's probably going to be services that are more on the medical side. So otherwise, really the need for an assessment for assistive technology is just determined by the team on a case-by-case basis. It's not required in the same way other services may require assessment, like home modification that always requires assessment by an OT or PT. In this case, it's really going to be determined by the team. The team does determine that an assessment is needed. It may be completed by a licensed professional such as an OT or PT, or perhaps a speech pathologist if you're looking at a communication device. Or assessment can be completed by a qualified assistive technology specialist who is an individual with expertise on the type of assistive technology being requested. Or assessment can be completed by a vendor who's authorized to consult, install, and monitor electronic systems or devices like our remote support providers are. Some be a little bit of a judgment call for the team to determine if an assessment is needed or not, but that decision is up to the team. So emergency response systems, let's look a little closer at each one of these different kinds of services and systems. The personal emergency response systems are some kind of electronic device that's programmed to signal a response center once the help button is activated. And like I said, you often see these advertised on television or magazines, to the general public. It will help a person to secure help in an emergency. And for purposes of the waiver, it's limited to individuals who loan or who are loaned for significant portions of the day, or who don't have a caregiver who can assist them with getting help if needed. Medicator and dispensing systems, these are an electronic device that's programmed to provide a reminder to the person when medications are to be taken. It will, most of these will dispense the medication and then alert the individual that it's time for them to take their medication. And then if the medication is not removed from the dispenser, it will message a message center, message a call center, and let them know that the medication was not removed from the dispenser. So people who are able to self-administer medications, or for people who aren't self-administering medications but might just need that little bit of technology to help them do that, this could possibly be a good option for them. And it is still required that medications are set up by a nurse or qualified professional. If you have a copy of the PowerPoint yesterday, you won't see this slide. This is a slide that we just added because I was able to get a couple of pictures of some medication dispensing devices so you could see what those look like. And I think, really with any of the kinds of things that I'm going to talk about today, there are just a lot of different options, and some options might require a landline, some options require cell phone coverage, some options might require internet capability, and it really varies from device to device or service to service is what's required. And so this is kind of a good example of this. I got a chance to actually see one of these medication dispensing devices that you see on the left there just last week. And you can tell from the picture, but I'd say it's about the size of a bread machine and kind of looks a little bit like a bread machine. The medication goes into the device, it's loaded in, and then it dispenses the medication and alerts the person that it is time to take their medication. But on the left only requires landline coverage. The one on the right has an internal cellular modem, so it does not require landline coverage. So I think the thing to just kind of realize is that there are many different options out there, and each one may work a little bit differently. So if you know somebody who needs a med dispenser but they don't have a landline, then you probably are going to have other options to look at. So let's look at remote support systems. And likewise, remote support systems can include a lot of different things. It can include sensors in the home that can detect how many people are actually inside the home. It sensors on doors and windows that alert a remote staff person that somebody has entered the home. It'd be a web-based camera system that allows two-way communication with remote staff. Or it could be sensors that track wellness information or a person's activities in the home, such as a number of times that they get out of bed at night. It could track their activities, all of those kinds of things. And these systems can be very individualized based on what people actually need. When we remote support systems, we need to really take into consideration the privacy of the individual and others in the home that they may live with, type of equipment and placement of the monitors or the sensors is really going to depend on the needs and wishes of the individual. This is controlled by the individual, can be turned off as needed, and in your planning process you would plan what would be at that point in time, how you would deliver service if the individual chooses a particular time to turn the system off. That would be part of your planning. Some of these might require internet and some of them may require cell phone coverage. It really just depends on which system is being used. Just a few examples of some other kinds of assistive technology, and this is really a short list. There are many more, and at this point in time, I think we're really only limited by our imagination as to what could be available. With technology we have today, many of these systems or devices are initially, developed for the general public, but they have great potential for use by people who have disability. And that to my coworker John yesterday, and he, being a smart fellow he is, pointed that it also has worked the other way, and that there have been kinds of technology that were actually developed to assist individuals with disabilities that have actually wound up having great application for the general public as well, such as text-to-speech software. And that's a good example of how technology has moved from assisting people with disabilities to being part of the general community. So that works both ways. Aaron uses smart technology to be more independent in his home. He uses Alexa to turn on lights, to communicate with others through his through an intercom system, and also to keep his grocery list and to order groceries. He has a video doorbell that allows him to see who's at the door through his cell phone. And he's an example of someone who uses technology that's just generally available to anyone to help him be more independent. Aaron is actually featured on a video that we developed to kick off the TechnologyFirst Initiative. He talks on video about how technology is a growing field, grows every day, and his goal is to someday buy the home that he lives in from his family, and that assistive technology is really going to allow him to live in his home for a long time. The assistive technology video that I mentioned is going to be available and posted in the near future. We won't look at that one today, but we'll make sure that everyone gets a link to that video as soon as it is disseminated. You might, we're talking a lot about services that are just available to the general public, and how do I get that if I want to purchase that through the waiver? I could just go to Amazon and buy it, but I need to get it through the waiver. And so typically any of our specialized medical equipment, durable medical equipment, those providers can assist with purchasing devices like Alexa or something like that, and then you would be able to obtain that from them through the waiver for an individual. These are situations that can help you when you're thinking about someone you know who might benefit. Whoops. Slide. So the Assistive Technology service is available in all 4 waivers operated by the Division of Developmental Disabilities. $1,000 per waiver year per individual. A regional office director must approve exceeding that $9,000 cap if necessary. Assistive is authorized as under the A9999 code, whether you're talking about a one-time purchase, such as a communication device, or it's an ongoing service, such as a remote support. There's an Assistive Technology referral form that is located in the Division of DD Guideline number 25. You can find the referral form there, and it just asks a lot of questions about justifying the assistive technology service that you're requesting. But you would need to submit the assistive technology referral form and the assistive technology assessment if one was needed for utilization review. Okay. These are considerations that can help you when you're thinking about someone you know who might benefit from assistive technology. And I think that's kind of the takeaway from this slide, is really who do you know that might be able to live more independently with the use of assistive technology. It might be receiving residential supports, or it might be somebody who's living with their family. But who do we know that might be living in a nursing home or another setting and could transit back home if they had some assistive technology? Who do we know who could be more independent with some assistive technology in their lives? And sometimes just being able to make one thing go a little bit easier in a family's routine can make a big difference in reducing their stress level. I really think the challenge to us is just to really recognize and to think when we're visiting with individuals and families, is there something that assistive technology could help them do in their lives to be more independent and make their daily routines maybe just a little bit easier. Considerations can be helpful as you are including information in plan to justify a request for an assistive technology service. So just a little bit confusing. There are a lot of similarities in the definitions of assistive technology, specialized medical equipment. If you look at those definitions, they really kind of overlap quite a bit. So trying to determine, well, this service that I want, is it really assistive tech or is it specialized medical equipment? It can, again, be a little bit of a judgment call to try to figure that out. So these are some questions that can just maybe help you determine which service you're really looking at. Electronic device does help the person operate a household item or be more independent in some way, complete tasks more independently. Does it monitor a person's health and safety? Does them communicate with other people? And so if those things are true, it's probably going to be assistive technology. But if it's a little bit more medical-based, it seems to be some medical purpose or is assisting a person with their mobility, then it's probably going to be specialized medical equipment. And so an example of this might be like a bed sensor that alerts a remote staff person if somebody has a seizure. So would it be specialized medical equipment or would that be assistive technology? Because it has a little, you can kind of look at that a little bit both ways. But I'm going to say it's probably going to be assistive technology because it's forward-oriented and it's probably part of an electronic system that acts and provides wellness data. The waiver source for assistive technology, and these are some other potential funding sources. As with other services, you would want to exhaust what's available in the state plan and other resources before requesting waiver funds. Assistive technology might be available through the state plan. Probably, again, those are going to be things that are a little bit more medically based. IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, does provide some funds for educational-related assistive technology for schools. Devices might be available through rehab or through rehab services for the blind if someone qualifies for their services. And Missouri Technology is also a great resource for assistive technology. Located in Blue Springs, but they provide services statewide. And they have programs such as a short-term loan program, which allows individuals to buy devices, assistive technology, to see how they work and if they'll work for them. They have a device reutilization program, which essentially helps to rehome assistive technology that one individual might not be using, but someone else can. They adapted telephones and computer adaptations. They have an AT reimbursement program to help school districts obtain assistive technology for students. Kids Assistive Technology, their CAT program, which is a funding source of last resort for use of children with disabilities. A Show Me Loan program, which is a financial loan program to help people purchase assistive technology. They also provide training on assistive technology, referring devices and services. And if you've ever been to their thing in Blue Springs, they have a wonderful demonstration site with all kinds of assistive technology that you can imagine that you can go in and hold, use, experience. And it's just a really great resource for individuals in Missouri. Some data the division has on the use of assistive technology, and we just picked one quarter. We picked the last quarter of the last fiscal year, and we wanted to see how many people had actually received some kind of assistive technology service other than remote supports. We were just looking at this data specifically in terms of assistive technology devices, such as a medication reminder system, a communication device, something like that, typically a one-time purchase. And there were 29 individuals in that quarter who received some kind of assistive technology service or device, which is less than 1% of all the individuals participating in the Developmental Disability Waiver Programs. And services were provided by 7 different providers of assistive technology services. There are many more providers of assistive technology services available throughout the state. And as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, in many cases, our providers who provide specialized medical equipment, durable medical equipment, can also provide assistive technology for us. More specifically, just remote supports, and wanted to know how many people were receiving remote supports as part of their support package. And in last fiscal year, there were 115 individuals receiving developmental disability services who also were supported through the use of remote support systems. And the range of ages is from children to senior citizens. And, this includes individuals who experience a wide range of developmental disabilities. Again, it's less than 1% of all individuals participating in a DD waiver who are receiving remote support services. And so that's, just to look at this data, it's really why the division feels it is so important to promote assistive technology, because it does really appear to be a very underutilized service. So let's look a little more specifically about remote supports, because they're a little bit more complex than some of the other services. And Terry, they live in a rural area outside of a small town. They receive ISL supports and also utilize remote supports. And they have a sensor system. It detects movement inside the house, and they're pointing to the sensor on their doors there. The sensors will detect if another person enters the home. Terry can actually contact remote staff by just pushing a kind of a big red button that they have that they can push, and then they're in contact with a remote staff person. They are also featured on the kickoff video that I mentioned earlier, and they talk about how they feel like they're just more independent. Actually, they receive their remote supports overnight, and so they feel that they're really more dependent in their nighttime and morning routines, having a staff person present. And in particular has a goal to live in her apartment, and she believes that using remote supports the opportunity to be more independent and gain more independent skills is really going to help her reach her goal of living in her own apartment. Okay, this is Jeremiah. Jeremiah uses a remote support system that has a web camera and a monitor, so his system's a little different than Melissa and Terry's. This system does require internet. Melissa and Terry's sensor system that we just saw does not require internet. It only requires cell phone coverage. At this point, I'm going to let Jeremiah speak for himself. Jeremiah and his mom are featured on this video telling us his story of how remote supports have worked for him.
I'm Jeremiah Gibson. I'm stuck in my parents' house, and watching really good.
Well, Jeremiah has Prader-Willi syndrome is what he has, and so that requires a lot of intensive supports to keep him safe and healthy. And one, as he mentioned, is, in home, we have 3 other children, and so having that refrigerator locked.
They don't like the cabinet lock, refrigerator lock. They don't get very much.
So Jeremiah was 18. He moved out into an ISL. And so it wasn't something Jeremiah wanted. He wanted his own place from the beginning. We tried it in different houses, different roommates. We just tried different things, and Jeremiah let us know all the way through this was not his plan, and his behaviors escalated, and to a point that we were very serious.
Go to the hospital.
And we had to hospitalize him. And when he got out of the hospital, he had to come right back to the ISL because that's all we had. And so talking with his treatment team, I said, there's got to be something different. There's got to be a better way to do this.
It did not get it. And then the way.
And with video monitoring instead of just sensory monitoring. John likes knowing who's on the other side of the camera, and he knows exactly who's on the other side of the camera. And if they're going on vacation or they're having a new grandbaby or whatever, I mean, they're his friends. There.
I have a son. Yeah.
Okay. We have the number here for your mother and your father. We have different numbers for both of them, and we'll out by calling your mother. We both her numbers. If we don't get her, then your father, we got 2 numbers for him, and we'll call these phone numbers, and we'll have somebody call you back, okay?
And if a seizure, the last 3 minutes to call, we have a call down process if something goes wrong, and it's just worked for us, And the freedom that offers Jeremiah, we have seen, we've had no hospitalizations, and we started out with staff from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. They would come in and be physically present with him, get his meds, his meals, and
It changed up a little bit.
Yeah, and so eventually he was doing very, very well, and he wanted more hours by himself, and so then we went from 8 to 12, and then that 4 to 8 again with physical staff present. Until I was 26 years old, he was never physically alone anywhere. Completely alone. So it was a radical thing, and my heart, my heart was all those things. What could go wrong? That's every parent's concern. Well, what ifs? And we do so many things because of what if this happens. And we knew Jeremiah would try to leave because he would see if it worked. Jeremiah was sick in the night. We've had light strikes on the building.
And seizure.
He had a seizure one night. He had somebody break into his apartment one night. We've had it all, and the system has worked. It's worked well. You like it?
I like it. I'm lonely myself. I have roommates. I don't have to argue with my roommates. I don't have to fight. I have to share. That's what it's about.
Okay, so let's stop for just a minute. I know a few people said that the video was echoing and you were kind of hearing voices twice. So I'm not sure how many of you had that issue on your end. To get a little feedback on that here. You did, and some of you didn't. Okay. I was able to turn the phone down and my computer up, and it worked. worked fine. Maybe what's going on, maybe people are hearing it through the computer and phone as well? I don't know. You just need to hear and listen to the phone. Okay, so we will show one more video towards the end. So we'll kind of remember that. You're probably going to have a better experience on the video if you mute the video on the computer and listen to it on your phone. Okay, we're able to at least hear what Jeremiah and Sue were saying. One of the most poignant parts of that video to me is when Sue talks about, you know, Jeremiah was never alone until he was 26, 27 years old. I just imagine, you know, needing an opportunity to spend any time alone until you're of that age. So Jeremiah's expression of joy, how much he loves his remote support system and how much it benefits him. So Jenna's mom talks a lot about the fears that she had about what could go wrong with using a remote support system. And knowing that you can trust the system in case of something like a power outage is really important. Safety is a priority in remote support systems, and backup systems are required to be in place. And the requires that the provider must have a backup system, such as a battery or generator for electronic devices in place at the monitoring base and at the individual's home as well. So both settings, where the person lives and where the call center is, has to have some kind of a backup system in case of power outage. Then the person must also have backup procedures for a system failure, such as a prolonged power outage, fire, weather emergencies, other individuals' medical issues, other emergencies. All of that needs to be planned for and well documented in the individual's plan. And in emergency situations, monitoring staff will call 911. Remote support systems, they're a great option for a lot of people. They're not necessarily for everyone. And it's really important to make sure that we're assessing the risks involved to ensure that we are choosing and designing supports that will work for the person. So the plan team has to complete a risk assessment when considering remote supports. Safety and security questions around assessing and planning for the risk are available in the ISP guide. And the great about remote supports is that they can be individualized to the level of support that the person needs. Also, ISP must include a backup plan, which specifies who is to be contacted by monitoring-based staff to respond to situations requiring on-site intervention. The backup plan can include natural or paid support. So, for example, if the individual is receiving ISL services, and in that case, the plan may include paid supports, or if is utilizing remote supports in their home, or an individual is living on their own, then maybe a parent or other family member or a friend who might be part of that backup plan would be a natural support. There has to be at least 2-person deep, so we have to have at least 2 people on the call list if there is an event which requires intervention. And the response time cannot exceed 20 minutes. Supports can be used, as I've mentioned several times, in conjunction with individualized supported living services or services such as personal assistance, self-directed services, or individual skills development. Remote supports can be used to decrease the need to have staff physically present, and are used in natural home settings where individuals reside with families or in their own homes. Angela is an example of someone who uses remote supports in conjunction with self-directed supports. And Dad provide her backup. She answers on the doors and windows like ones we saw pictures of earlier, and also wears a bracelet at night that detects if she has a seizure. And her mom are also featured in our kickoff video that I mentioned earlier, and she speaks very eloquently about the freedom that she has by living in her own home. It can also be used to help individuals increase their independence and control over their own homes, decrease the need for individuals to share their living environment with others, and Jeremiah spoke to us eloquently about that. And or rural areas where cell phone or internet capability is available. Just to kind of illustrate that a little bit, this is Buddy. Buddy's an example of where remote supports work for a person who lives in a very remote area. He lives in a very rural part of northwest Missouri, and he uses a web camera system, so he does the system that requires the internet, and it works very well for him. He has severe diabetes and receives medical personal assistance, and he also has a hearing impairment. So his personal assistants, his light personal assistants, and his remote staff communicate with him using sign language. Is Ariel that you see there on the monitor, his remote staff person, and she's able to communicate with him through the monitor using sign language. And there are times when Buddy has a way of letting staff know that he would prefer to be alone right now. Okay, and through the planning process and in his plan, it specifies that staff can, when staff recognize that Buddy's behaviors are, let him know he'd probably prefer some privacy, then the plan specifies that they can go ahead and turn on the monitoring system and leave. And is seems to work well for Buddy, and he's very successful using remote supports. So this, as I mentioned, Ariel, and Ariel can actually remotely turn on that lamp in order to get Buddy's attention so she can speak with him. So if we flip back to that, you can see the lamp is off there. As we were there with Buddy and Ariel that day, she was able to turn that on remotely. Just another example of some assistive technology that Buddy uses. He uses a bed shaker that's connected to a smoke alarm and will alert him in case there's a fire while he's sleeping. To be clear in saying that remote supports are not a system designed to surveil someone, are a system designed to use technology in place of on-site staff. We need to be really careful in planning remote supports so that they make sure that the services we set up really respect an individual's right to privacy, promote their independence, and that respect the privacy of anybody else who might be living in that home. Remember, not for use in group homes or shared living situations, but be clear about this too. Assistive technology, other than remote support staffing, can be used in these settings. What we can't do is just utilize remote supports that are going to involve a remote staff person because of the difficulty that would be involved in backing out staff for a group home or shared living situation, where those are designed to be 24-hour settings. And Rose's situation is an example of how technology can be provided in a way that really protects a person's privacy. Rose uses an infrared camera in her bedroom, and it detects when she's having a seizure and alerts a remote staff person. But because this camera is an infrared camera, it shows movement, but it does not actually show Rose. In other words, the remote staff person is not viewing Rose in her bedroom as she's sleeping, but they're going to be alerted if there is movement that would indicate she might be having a seizure. Is part of our TechnologyFirst kickoff video. She just talks about feeling really safe, relaxed. She loves not having to have a staff person all the time, and she feels very relaxed when she doesn't have someone else, a staff person there with her in her home. Actually, Rose used to live in a residential care facility. So she's a great example of someone who has able to move to a much less restrictive setting. She lives in her own apartment and is very successful and has been able to be successful because of the remote supports that she uses. This is a chart that shows the providers that are currently contracted to provide remote supports in Missouri. You'll be familiar with the fact that in the past we had 3 remote support providers, but we now do have 4. SmartCare is a newer agency. And this chart just shows the differences in how the different services that are provided by the different providers. They're a lot the same in many ways, but they also have their own unique features, and each was a little bit different. For example, Rest Assured provides the web cameras, whereas Night Owl Together Tech have the sensor systems that we showed pictures of earlier as well. Also, Rest Assured has a 2-part billing process. If you look at the rates, their services are authorized both through the technology piece and also as personal assistance group. And you can see that each provider bills just a little bit differently. For example, if you look at who runs the remote system, SmartCare does not provide a call center, and so the monitoring is going to be provided by either a community-based provider or a family member. So how each system works is a little bit unique to that system. What technology is required may vary, as I've kind of mentioned several times as we've been talking this morning. So I'm just going to say, you know, I'd get myself in big trouble probably if I tried to explain all of the services and how they work and the differences. But I'm just going to say, you know, recommend that you contact the remote support providers for more specific information about how their services work. And their contact information is right here. And I have explaining all the ins and outs of their services. And I do recommend that you speak with them if you're interested in learning more about assistive technology or considering using it possibly for an individual that you work with. All right. Let's talk about how we plan for remote supports. Process pretty much like other services. The team's going to identify that remote supports might be an option for an individual. You're going to discuss those options, evaluate which type of remote support is going to work best for the person. Once the remote support entity is selected, you're going to complete a risk assessment, as mentioned earlier. And the ISP will need to be amended to include a statement that justifies rationale for remote supports, how it benefits the person, how it assures their health and safety, promotes independence, all of that kind of information to justify the service in the plan, and verification that the risk assessment was completed and reviewed by the planning team. The ISP also needs to include a description of the equipment that you're going to be using, how it works, the features, where it's going to be located in the home, that the individual and family know about it, how to use it, how to turn it on and off. Needs to be a detailed backup plan. In event of system failure, that needs to be in your plan. The ratio of staff who will be remotely monitoring the individual needs to be included. And ensure of the emergency backup responder plan in the event that someone needs to actually respond and to the individual's residence. So you need to really have a detailed emergency backup responder plan. It needs to include, as we mentioned before, 2 deep supports, which could be either natural supports or staff. Paid support responders may be funded through community specialist or direct care hours on an ISL budget, or if they are occurring in the natural home and they are going to be paid supports, that could be done through personal assistant or community specialist. Again, time has to be within 20 minutes. Response time might be face-to-face, or depending on the situation, maybe a telephone call. That responder is what would be needed. And so you just plan for that in the plan, depending on the situation, when somebody need to respond face-to-face and when would a phone call be sufficient. Needs to include support technology can be turned on and off by the individual in a given day. The emergency situations when monitoring staff would call 911. And now the event's going to be documented because remote support staff have to document the same as care staff do. And so individual and guardian have signed the plan. Are any rights restrictions, rights that are being limited by the remote supports, then the ISP is submitted to the Due Process Committee for review. And then once that's completed, the ISP and the AT referral form that I mentioned earlier are sent to UR requesting remote supports and the backup service. And the support coordinator then will draft authorizations for the remote support service and any other services that are being provided. Okay, I'm getting to the last segment here. We want to talk specifically about some information that's probably going to pertain most to the ISL providers who may support individuals who also receive remote supports. And this was just some additional data that we looked at about remote supports and how they're being provided. In fiscal year 2018, we had 12 providers of ISL services who were ISL supports in conjunction with remote support system, and 19 providers of other waiver services such as personal assistance and individual skills development who were providing services also in conjunction with the remote support system. And that's a total of 24 unduplicated providers. Just another way to look at how services are being used and the fact that there really does appear to be underutilization of this service. Different models that can be used if remote supports are going to be combined with ISL supports. The ISL provider can support an individual who also receives supports from a remote support provider who mans a call system, initiates the backup responder plan if needed, or an ISL provider can provide their own remote staff person who monitors the system through use of technology that's provided by one of the remote support providers. If supports are going to be provided in an ISL setting for the first time, the ISL provider really needs to work with the regional office provider relations team to submit a plan that's going to outline all of the information about really how you're going to do this and how you're going to make a change from providing direct care staff to remote staff for portions of the day. So the ISL provider would work with provider relations team to develop a plan that's going to outline the hours of the day that remote supports are going to be used, what transition is going to look like, because typically if your goal is to be providing remote supports, let's say hours a day during the night to an individual or a couple of individuals in an ISL setting, you're not going to start out with 8 hours a night. You're only going to start out with 2 hours a night and see how that goes, and then transition slowly from there. So plan needs to include that and talk about that. How are you going to make that transition work for the individuals that are going to be receiving remote supports? outline, again, backup service can be authorized through community specialists or direct care professional hourly rate, so the plan needs to include how you're going to do that, what's your policy going to be around using or calling 911, needs practicing on your responses, your response time, and include a plan for retention of available funds. So what am I that? In order to be approved, remote supports have to be cost neutral. But from that, if there is a cost savings, the funds can be redirected into the direct care professional hourly rate. Okay, this part can get kind of complicated, yeah, and this would be where providers would really want to work with their provider relations team, the regional office, to do that. But basically, savings funds are first distributed into the daily rate for the person or people who are receiving the remote support service. No one's rate can exceed the lower bound rate associated with that person's rate allocation score. Once you reach that, once you reach the limit, you can distribute any additional cost savings to the rate for other individuals supported by the agency and not to exceed the lower bound rate. Basically, the way you do this, after a remote support provider is chosen, then the cost for the remote supports is calculated. The total of the current ISL budget less remote support costs will leave the funds that are available to redirect into ISL direct care professional hourly rate. If for some reason the remote supports don't work for that individual or individuals, if they're not successful, then the direct care hourly rate would have to go back to the original rate. All of this is outlined in Division Directive 4.400, and providers, probably the best takeaway from all of this is just to know, work with your provider relations team to develop your plan about how you're going to do this. Here's a little example. This is based on an example of 3 individuals living together. And the average cost of providing overnight staffing for a year for 8 hours a night calculated at $70,080. Agency A is an agency that bills both for technology and personal assistance group. As I mentioned, one of our remote support providers bills services. And then Agency B is actually an agency that bills for a monthly rate of service. That's just 2 different examples. The savings, after you subtract out the costs for the remote support agency, can be used, again, that what you see is your bottom line there, what you have left, to increase direct care professional hourly rate for staff. And I think the good thing about that is if providers are able to recruit and retain good staff, then that's a good thing for everybody. Okay, Ronnie. Someone that I had the pleasure of meeting and filming his story. And we're going to end with letting Ronnie tell you about how remote supports have helped him make his dream come true. After this video is over, we will wrap up, come back for a wrap up, but this is going to be, we're getting pretty close to the end here. So let's listen to Ronnie.
And I came marching to Kirkfield back in 91, 92, and 7. Kenny Curley, got a good job and stuff, and now I'm on my own income, my own self with the night out system.
Yep. Ronnie mentioned he came in 91. I actually started the field in 95, and I knew Ronnie. and at that time, Ronnie was a really cool dude.
Yes,
Really cool dude. He was working on being on his own. And I left, and when I came back to the Kirk Square area, which is 2007, I met up with Ronnie again. Started to work with him, and he was in an ISL with 24-hour care.
That's right.
And I kind of asked him, I was kind of wondered, because when 95 and
Right.
97, when I
Yeah.
was here, you were actually kind of working over, you had your own apartment and everything.
Yeah.
And then he kind of talked to me and said, kind of what you're saying, that you got in some trouble,
Right.
and go back and get some more support.
Yeah.
Working on goals. One of Ronnie's goals was to be on his own.
Yes, sir.
He wanted to be on his own and have his own apartment, have his own place to be more independent.
Get it? Yep. Good job.
Yeah, get a job and everything. So at that time we was working, and we had a bit of a setback. Yeah, had a little bit of a setback, and so he wasn't able to get the time independence that he wanted. He went through several different roommates.
Man.
And in our settings, it's hard to do a one-person ISL, and so you have to have a roommate, or sometimes some people have to have multiple roommates in order to pay rent and do things like that.
Yes.
However, we just couldn't find a match, and as I looked at him and talked about things and was talking with his team and his guardian,
Who was concerned was?
yeah, I didn't feel it was right. I felt like, what else? What's out there can we do? Each window has like a little sensor. The way to describe it, night owl service would be like a security system.
Yes.
And so, when we came in, the guard was like, well, I don't know if this guy for Ronnie has not been on his own, so, and it was scary. We took time trying to find a place he could afford, and had the housing approval and all that stuff. According to that, there's a 20-minute response time that they have to be within. We make it so where it's about 10. I remember that first week I got a call about 21 o'clock in the morning, and it was Ronnie. And I said, hey, Ronnie, what's going on? I'm putting up, and I'm thinking something's going on. And he said, Mike, it's hot in the house. And I said,
it was too hot. What should I do? I walked out and said, what's going on here? And stuff.
And what was funny, it never occurred to me that Ronnie, you weren't used to having somebody in the home. And that was it was just odd. I kind of chuckled, but I worked through it, and once he got used to there not being anybody in the home, I don't think he wants to go back to where.
I don't, man. Oh, man, please don't think about that, man. Please don't, man. I love it, really, I do. You know.
I've seen so much growth in him just the past year that I've known him. Just having this and being able to prove not only to himself but to other people what he can accomplish on his own.
Yeah, work with them. See him go from a point where he needed a lot of support to a point where he's almost at his dream. The part I focus on is the dream part, because to me that's where you really do the work at. After we get to see your dreams.
Man, see if I can't choose. I feel like I'm tricky. I feel like I'm choosing. So, it's a blessing.
Okay, I think Johnny does an excellent job of just pointing how important the use of technology is to him, and how much it's changed his life, and how he really able to make his dreams come true through use of assistive technology. And so, again, I think the challenge to all of us is just to keep in mind, think about individuals we know, and maybe think about supports a little bit different way than we have in the past, and to keep technology truly in the forefront of our mind when we are talking with individuals, visit them in their homes, and let's have having an open mind about what could maybe help this person achieve their dreams and be more independent. Okay, so want to look at some of the questions that we have here, Heike. So asking about, do you need 2 beds for assistive technology like you do SME? I believe so. I have not seen anything that tells me that you need to have more than 1 bed, but that's something I want to research and make sure that I give you the correct answer on. So we're going to include that in our frequently asked questions. Let's see what supports used only to replace staff. I mean, a lot of times when we use the term remote supports, that's probably what we're talking about, is using technology rather than staff. But some of these technologies are really used to alert a staff person. And so you can use something like, let's say, one of the questions I think is about a bed alarm to gather information about how often an individual gets up throughout the night. Yes, may not be replacing staff in that situation. You might just be using a piece of assistive technology to either alert a staff person that someone has gotten up, or to monitor and figure out how often a person is getting up at night, because you're concerned about what that means. Is there some issue with them? How come are they going to the bathroom 5 times a night and they didn't used to do that? What's going on? So yes, you can use assistive technology to help gather information about the person's activities, even if you're not replacing a staff person. In that case, it's just going to be assistive technology. Let's see, do we have questions here? Oh, technology, is that provided to both individual and staff? And yes, I would say that you're going to want to ensure that staff and the person are both trained so that they know, staff are aware of how a device works, so they use it, and to assist an individual in accessing their device. He's asking about the 4 waivers. It's covered under all 4 waivers, all of them: community support, partnership for hope, comprehensive, all waivers. This service is included, assistive technology. Some of assistance is desired to help select what technology may support an individual. Some of the waiver funds pay for provider services to help identify, train on the use of it. I'm not sure. That's one of them I'm going to check on and research to see if that's possible. Okay. Some of the contact information for those remote support providers is here, and I can send it to anyone who would like for me to as well. The people are access the PowerPoint, right? Okay.
We will have a recording of this webinar, the presentation, and the questions compiled. And when all of those are available, there will be a division email blast that is sent out notifying you that those are available, and it will have the links to each of those. If you are not signed up to receive the division email blast, if you will go to dno.gov, click Developmental Disabilities, it will take you to the DD homepage. On the right side of the screen, below the navigation bar, you will see a rectangle, and in that, if you'll click on that, it says email updates or email blasts, something to that effect. You'll click on that, that will take you to the registration process so that you will receive all the division email blasts that go out. You can also check back on our webinar page. That on the DD homepage, it will be the last bulleted item on the right side of the screen for webinars. It will give you, you'll be able to find the upcoming webinars as well as the previous webinars and the contents that were associated with those webinars.
I think we've looked at the questions that we have, and like I said, and Heike said, we'll be making thoroughly answered on our frequently asked questions. Go ahead and wrap up. Get to our end. Here we go. Okay, we're going to be providing information on assistive technology to individuals, guardians, families, telling them to contact support coordinators if they have interest and or questions. So it's great that you were able to attend today if you're a support coordinator, because you'll be able to help provide information to families and to try to make that job just a little bit easier for you. One of the things we have developed is a remote support handout. It's not posted yet, but it will be posted soon. It's just a one-page handout. It's pretty simple, and it's really designed for support coordinators to give to families to really kind of help start the discussion. You know, just give you a starting point in working with families and talking about remote supports and what they are. And then it also lists all of that contact information for the remote support providers as well. And provide support coordinators. If you have questions, then you're going to want to contact probably the provider relations at your regional office. Then also this is contact information for myself and my coworkers at Mo Housing. We're available to help provide training to your agency, and also to individuals and families that use support. We can help you get connected with providers, help you get connected with resources. You know, I certainly don't consider myself an expert on assistive technology. What you've heard today is basically what I've been able to learn over the last few months, and so I don't consider myself an expert, but I am certainly willing to help you in any way that I can to explore assistive technology and find the resources and answers and solutions looking for as you're working with the individuals that you support. And I hope that we have been able to pique your interest in assistive technology today, and that you will begin to think about the use of assistive technology for the individuals that you know who might possibly benefit from it. So please don't hesitate to contact me or one of my coworkers if you have questions, or we can be of assistance to you.
Perfect. Waiting for that email blast to come out, and then you will have access to today's materials.
Thanks for attending.